The sense of sight presupposes light. The absence of light presupposes the unknown itself and the fear of the unknown.
The dead are everywhere. That we don't see them is our first blindness. The woman on the left in the white shirt is my mother. Her younger sister, Jacqueline, 16 years old, she's in the striped shirt. This photo was taken in the 1940s. They lived in times of deep wounds and war, that is just like our own every day. The snapshot was taken in Varennes, Quebec. My mother has around her neck a Brownie Kodak Synchro, the iconic consumer model camera of the time, the iPhone of its era, a simple but mysterious coffin that turns moments of time into images of recollections. I don't know who is behind the other camera, the camera that took the photo. A photograph is taken of sisters in a field. A flower is moved from hand to hand. Jacqueline died quite young, at 27 or so. She died of leukemia. She had recently been married when she became ill. The funeral was in the dark of a late afternoon winter. I remember massive walls of gray snow lining the road as we drove up to the funeral parlor. There was no grayer gray than snow in the afternoon dark of a Quebec winter. The casket was open. For some unknown reason, it was thought to be a good idea for me to pay my respects. Maybe it was the Catholic way. I was 6 or 7 at the time, maybe younger. I practically passed out from the nauseating sweetness of the overabundance of funeral lilies, combined with the sweetness of the formaldehyde corpse of my Aunt Jacqueline. A photograph is taken of sisters in a field. A flower is moved from hand to hand. Another hand reaches out to another flower beyond our vision, obscured by the grasses of life. What does memory look like? A moment in time made this photograph. A day in the summer made this photograph. My mother, who is not yet my mother, made this photograph. What the photograph reproduces to infinity is an occurrence that happened once upon a single time, an immaculate conception of the infinite in a moment that has disappeared.
A photograph is a hypnotic device, a metaphor machine of material substitutions. These pictures made from a box that tempts eternity, each one a hieroglyph from a language we keep speaking but will never fully understand.
Every photograph is the first frame of a movie.
How to interpret mother? A dot of color that blends with other dots that turn into a picture. My mother is so beautiful.
How did this image come to be?
This was taken in the 1930s. This woman, my mother, she sees, but what does she see? What is she looking at? I believe that the pictures were more authentic, less posed than in our own era. But are they?
Who took the photo? A self-timer? Was the person a student of photography? Framing? Posing? You think, snapshot. But is it?
This does not represent my mother. It is a document of her, an emanation, a fascination.
She isn't looking at the camera. She isn't smiling.
She is here forever. She told me her own father plastered ceilings into paradises. That is, my grandfather crafted into existence heavens. That is, he was a plasterer of cherubs and angels in bas relief. That was a thing in previous centuries. Crowded heavens as ceilings. That's what my mom told me anyways. It could have been a metaphor, a reality, or a joke. Or more likely all three. That is all I know of him. But it seems enough. I exist. That is, I am assured in a darkness whose purpose is light. I am a camera.
Our mother's face is our first word. It is our original language made flesh. Here, helplessness and care, desire and joy meet.
She who brought me into the unknown. We can assuredly assume this. The facts of the world are endless, that there are no ends to anything, that history reaches beyond our own knowing, that any event presupposes every other past event, that apophenia, the experience of seeing meaningful patterns or connections in apparently random data, may be a form of creative genius or of insanity. I was born on the date that the first animal life form escaped from the gravity of Earth. I became as hollow and empty as the spaces between stars. Here I sit between my mother and my aunt, the aunt who died, receiving their attention, a series of glances that now you have become part of. My pupil distorted to a rhomboid, a bowling ball bulb of a skull, full of the intestines of thought. The look I have is one of suspicion, cautious, fear of this outside world, a world not to be trusted. Now I am amused by the excessive patterns of the late 50s, even down to my red and white plaid diaper.
His mother's ability to express in shape and color impressed him. How scientific, how exact. He would have taken her for a physicist, someone who had tangled with the uncertainties of matter and time, if he didn't very well know that it was his mum, Mimi. His mum, who had fed him brown sugar and banana sandwiches and washed his hair with incredibly poisonous disinfectant once when he brought home his head full of wiggling lice. She didn't winch. Well, not much. She'd seen baboons on TV grooming one another. She identified with creatures and variations in light. When he woke late at night for this or that reason, he would find his mum at the kitchen table with sips of bare light illuminating her cards. She'd be playing solitaire. She'd hardly glance at Oliver as he poured himself a glass of milk. She'd not say a word, serious, as if She was negotiating the SALT talks between the Soviets and the Americans, weighing nuclear missiles against conventional ground troops, the fate of the African continent, and the nationalistic policies of India that conflicted with US companies like Coca-Cola. Perfectly that, and more. The cards were well worn, dirty even with handling and contemplation and luck. She'd be estimating the shades of grays in the overhead lighting squared by the electricity used by the incandescent bulb, figuring by her own devices the speed of the water tumbling in the turbines at the local hydro station. It could come down to the incline of the neighbor's lawn, triangulated with a passing cloud through the half moon, multiplied by the differential of the XYZs of the striations of the other neighbor's garden hose. It was all Greek to Oliver. He didn't care much for cards. That's my mum, he would think to himself as he headed back to the warm curves of his bed. But he'd dream the outlines of diamonds, spades, clubs, and hearts. He'd dream in red and black, and he'd dream of a woman who was the calculation that questioned his sum and was as unknown as a flip of a playing card. Though he could not help but love his mother, he could not help but be terrified of her too.
Finger marks and dirt, scratches, stains, a sense of human history, human collapse, human age, reflected in the material decrepitude of the photo. A paper-thin image, tarnished by time. A very black dog. A very white cat. And a man with a bucket of what one presumes to be milk on a winter morning. The man has one of his arms extended awkwardly in an internal gesture, easing the movement of the cat off of his shoulder. It's an action picture.
The World War Gum Series, 1933. The Worldwide Gum Company was based out of Montreal, Canada. The World War Gum set of photos utilized imagery from the Canadian official war photographers. The Worldwide Gum Company. You get the photos of devastation and death with your bubblegum purchase.
The problem is to photograph sand. Sand that seems to flow, yet is gritty if we touch it. Sand that's soft and warm and clean. Sand that's yielding, though made of the material of rock. We have a camera to control the light. We have the light itself, illuminating and throwing shadows. Because Weston does not trim his pictures or enlarge them, this is the moment of final selection.
Photography has transformed the entirety of the universe into a photographical object.
This appeared by unadulterated luck. I swear it was not bought as a prop. I was walking along and saw this on the ground, wondered,
What is it? A rubbery ball? Garbage? Trash? What's it doing there? The Blue Light. Esoteric fantasy starring the director Leni Riefenstahl. An outcast young woman luring young men to their deaths with her secret cave of blue crystals. The film was co-written by the leftist Jewish Weimar intellectual and theorist Bela Bolage. Subsequently, his name was taken out of the credits by Riefenstahl. Apparently, she didn't pay him either. His crime? Being Jewish. Photography can't help but be a spectacle. Here, sentiments of unlimited aspiration towards the mystical goal of unlimited light, crystals of light, inviolable spiritual essences beyond the soft animal body. A crossing over into the spectral and astral realms, based on the blindness of light itself. Submission, surrender, illumination, mindlessness, glamour, occult, magical, kitschy, grifter, glamour. When history becomes an image of incandescent power, when an all-consuming mystification and blind following swallows political and intellectual discernment, then the light of unreason exposes the world and reality succumbs, only to serve the image. Everything is live, real-time, and always on. That is why narrative structure as reality has spasmed into an ever-expanding and never-ending media-powered ego show.
Images take precedence over values, personality more valued than character. The hero has been supplanted by the celebrity. Hypercapitalism is the marriage of gangsterism and celebrity culture. Images are the main currency.
You click, we hear money clink. What happens in the almost no time of the camera click? All of history.
Politics and history are now to be understood as secondary, derivative forms of telecommunications. We are taking part in a spectacle of decline comparable only to geological catastrophes. This is a true story. Photography shoots reality, right? It is what is in front of the lens, whatever that may be. This is a ball. This is a circle. This is maybe a stress-relieving toy.
Depth 5-8 feet. Depth 5-8 feet, sir.
Do you remember that odd film with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton? I'm not sure I remember it rightly or if I've imagined the whole thing. It was titled Boom. And they would often just say boom to one another as if it meant something. I don't think there was any plot. I can't remember any. They would stop in the middle of a conversation just out of the blue, say, out of the blue. Yeah. Boom. This is the photo we have lived in our entire lives. Boom was adapted by Tennessee Williams from his own play, The Milk Train Doesn't Stop Here Anymore.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form once says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Don't you think that we're all, that all of this is some kind of hell world, some sort of demon-possessed hell? And this other film, which I had not seen, about the end of the world, done most convincingly, nobody survives this film. This film is titled On the Beach, made in 1959. A lone, random message from America is picked up a continent away. Is it life? Survivors? No. It's a coincidence. A moment of chance.
Window shade tugging on a Coke bottle.
There is no hope. None. It's quite a good film.
This is a true story. The thing was there at that point in space, in that state, on that day, and at that time.
Rosebud.
She was tired of being anyone, and the gin bottle called out a sort of liberation that delivered a confusion of self that was like not having a self. And the painting, the canvas, accepted all of her very definitive assertions, born in a photographic moment of conception.
There are family stories that won't be told, suburban and Shakespearean shames that will never wash away. And with no photos taken, we are left with the grotesqueries of our own so uncertain memory.
Linseed oil, titanium white, Mars black, cadmium yellow light, vermilion, visions.
It was the 60s after all.
I won't. There is hope. There has to be hope. There's always hope. We just can't go on like this. We can't.
The mechanical character of the action of opening and closing the shutter, the substratum of instantaneity, which persists in photography, is the concrete opposite of movement from the complicated flow of a liquid. In Milk, this photo by Jeff Wall, the explosion of the milk takes a shape which is not really describable, though patently observable. With its unpredictable contours and incalculable shape, the explosion shows an intelligence that we can see but cannot confirm. The liquid intelligence of nature. Today, in digital photography, there is a hidden and not so hidden ocean of meaning inherent in natural processes that the hard optics, mechanics, and cold, dry electronics of the camera remain in dependence of and in remembrance of. That intelligence is fluid. That intelligence is nature.
sure is weird music. No. It's a whistling, you know, like an outer space type thing.
This is Radio Moscow. Good evening, everybody. We are broadcasting on 17.
In this era of AI, reality is starting to feel queasy about itself. It is approaching the immediate realization of thoughts. Only a step appears to be missing. This step could emerge from the dream itself, as if from a mirror. The disappearance of matter through a continuous interface. The interface is the camera.
The line between the reality that is photographed because it seems beautiful to us and the reality that seems beautiful because it has been photographed is very narrow. Everything that is not photographed is lost, as if it never existed, and that in order to truly live, you must photograph as much as you can, and in order to photograph as much as you can, you must either live in the most photographable way possible or consider every moment of your life to be photographable. The first path leads to stupidity, while the second leads to the insanity that is so pervasive today. Photography from the 1840s to the 1860s. Images of the family dead were more popular than images of weddings. It is no accident that the death portrait was the focal point of early photography. For the last time, the aura emanates from the early photographs in the fleeting expression of a human face. This is what constitutes their melancholy, their incomparable beauty. The more absent the looker is, the more compelling the gaze. This is why the most compelling gazes belong to the dead.
To photograph, it means putting oneself into a certain relation to the world that feels like knowledge, and therefore like power. Recognizing the camera and the calculation of influence. This portrait is one of the most reproduced images in the history of photography. In speaking about the method, the photographer remarked, "This photograph is not the product of knowledge or technique. It was coincidence, pure chance."
Is it ironic that the camera is an empty box? An empty box, a stasis in darkness waiting to mirror the world? The face of humanity is the inscription of history, a mesh of identities of endless number. We develop the picture with the light we can give to one another. I saw shapes related to each other. I was inspired by a picture of shapes, and underlying that, the feeling I had about life. To the left was an inclining funnel, and from the upper steerage deck, there was fastened a gangway bridge that was glistening in its freshly painted state. A round straw hat, the funnel leaning left, the stairway leaning right, the white drawbridge with its railing made of circular chains, white suspenders crossing on the back of a man in the steerage below.
To know the idea of the synchronistic as being at the heart of photography. The history of photography is the symbolics of industrial and post-industrial society speaking to itself. What do photographs do? They generate more photographs.
Now, in our post-photography world, a realistic photograph is whatever you can dream up. It is illusory to understand time as a line along which the imagination can move, since duration, as the cause of time is called, does not progress through a line, but is time itself. The spectacle, grasped in its totality, is both the result and the project of the existing mode of production. The fact that digital images are fundamentally machine readable allows for the automation of vision on an enormous scale, and along with it, the exercise of power.
Photographs are multiples, iterations, generations, duplicates. immortal doppelgangers of reality. Life is given in a blink. How could it not be an eternity? People now upload something like 2 billion images every day. When a machine runs efficiently, when a matter of fact is settled, one need focus only on its input and outputs, and not on its internal complexity. Thus, paradoxically, the more science and technology succeed, the more opaque and obscure they become.
Opening one's eyes to reading the images in time, of time stopped.
The camera stops life as if life would go on forever in the smile of a moment. She has become a photograph.
The developed picture inscribes eternity within time. Each picture a Rorschach of the real, a reflection and mirror of one's own disappearance, yet the radiance of meaning that memory brings.
Because basically that is what love is, a declaration of eternity, to be fulfilled or unfurled as best it can be within time. Eternity descending into time, as impersonal and alive as water. The eye comes undone, a vanishing in a breath that circles around as the dissolution and the eternal return of the yes, in a fashion of noir, impenetrable.
This eye remembers everything, is everyone, is twinned through the hells and heavens, through murders and births, through love and hate, and is bound with the potential of transcendence and a currency of knowing that is the unadulterated grace of existence itself.
This is a picture of desire beyond the waves of the moment.
George Eastman said, "One may consider my business as primarily a making of things, or one may set up an ideal and consider those things which I make only as steps toward an ideal." What was his definition of the ideal? A definite object which can never be reached.
Photography and capitalism are premised upon a fiction of endless accumulation in a finite world. Cameras define reality in the two ways essential to the workings of an advanced industrial society, as a spectacle and as an object of surveillance.
But we must do our own work.
The production of images also furnishes a ruling ideology. Social change is replaced by a change in images.
He loved his mother with a passionate tenderness. For 53 years, until her death in 1907 at the age of 86, they were together. He had never married. He said, "When my mother died, I cried all day."
George Eastman, at 77 and with failing health, suffering from the same incapacitating disease that killed his mother, wrote, "To my friends, my work is done. Why wait?" He put a folded wet towel over his heart, apparently to prevent powder burns, turned the muzzle of a Luger automatic to the place where his doctor had outlined, and pulled the trigger. Mothers are another name for photography. Mothers and photography are both means of reproduction.
Here's how you can relive a good time over and over again. See it, big as life in full color slide.
If we accept the premise that no machine produces more than it consumes, what does a camera consume?
Everywhere you go. Just aim.
The desire to be seen is a fundamental driver of human affairs.
Exciting action shots.
The perfect system, producing while consuming, while producing while consuming.
Day or night. You can take them all in rich, beautiful color. The Kodak Signet 40 is the smartest color slide camera.
Needing to have reality confirmed and experience enhanced by photographs is an aesthetic consumerism to which everyone is now addicted.
$175. Ask your dealer about easy.
It is shadows that make a photo. Photography long ago turned us all into ghosts.
Inexpensive movie camera takes 1, 2, 3 kinds of movies. Kodak's new Brownie movie camera, turret model, lets you choose the view you want. Scenics, medium shots, or close-up.
There is nothing lonelier than eternity. A beautiful accident is the constant moment.
This is a true story. I was making a film on my mother.
Chance, the random, that is, whatever the world is, a contingent art, a found object art, the immediacy of the perpetual now.
This is a true story. I have the photographs. Photographs after the fact. I was walking along and saw this on the ground, wondered, a dog's ball?
It's a Freudian Jungian gift from the heavens. It's perfectly synchronous. It's round as the planet. It's as squeezable and circular as meaning itself. French writer Balzac had, like many others, a vague dread of being photographed. He believed that the camera, little by little, stole a piece of his soul. Every body in its natural state is made up of a series of ghostly images wrapped in infinitesimal films, superimposed in layers to infinity, Balzac told a friend. And each time a photograph was taken, a layer would be removed, transforming life into a membrane of memory in a sort of translucent anti-world. There is only one known photograph of Balzac. Photographic images are based on ghostly images that emanate from physical objects themselves and are then captured by the camera. Early photography became the method by which those who believed in an afterlife could be assured of their beliefs.
Please now, if the time is at hand, make yourself known to us. Any of you, please manifest yourself in any way possible. Please, with the united strength of knowledge, aid Houdini in coming through. It is the spirit of Houdini we wish to contact. Houdini, are you here? Are you here, Houdini? Please manifest yourself in any way possible. Take from this earnest gathering any strength that may be necessary for you to use. Take any vital thing from us you may need to enable you to carry out your promise of years ago. We have waited, Houdini, oh so long. Never have you been able to present the evidence you promised. And now, this is the night of night. The world is listening. Harry, your world, your audience. And Bessie is here. Your Bessie, who's part of you for 33 years. She's here, Harry, pleading your unfulfilling signs from you. It means so much to her, to all of us, to the world. Harry, we are all seekers after truth. Please manifest yourself by speaking to the prophet. Lift it. Speak through it, speak. Speak, Harry. We are marching in Harry. Levitate the table. Move it. Lift the table. Move it. Rap on it. Spell out any code, Harry. Please. Ring the bell. Let its tinkle be heard around the world. Do it, Harry. Please. Please, we are waiting. Bessie is waiting. Oh, thou spirit. Your religion is based on love. And by that very token, a love of 33 years that has even entered into eternity. By that love, I ask that you come through the end.
This guy, impossible, at least for me, not to like. His delight in life and in photography is imprinted for the ages. Nadar, the original, the innovator, the inventor, the photographer, the aeronaut, the radical. Nadar, described in a police dossier as one of those dangerous characters who spread highly subversive doctrines in the Latin Quarter. Nadar captured the first aerial photographs, photographing Paris from a tethered balloon at an altitude of 1,600 feet. You can see by his face in this proto-film and self-portrait his stupendous cat whisker-like mustache and an attitude for the ages, evermore.
Nadar, When I Was a Photographer, 1899. I can only find myself in relation to you, even though I know that because of this relation, I can never be simply myself, obsessed with you, and by you, I lose myself in the madness of a single desire to alter time. I want nothing else than to arrest time, to stop it, to seal it within the surface of a photograph. I want nothing else than to archive and preserve within a series of photographs, within the series of written photographs that my memoirs are. Not only the speed of light, but also the night and oblivion without which we could never see, and yes, the death and mourning without which neither I nor you can be said to live. I want to touch and preserve this passing, this itinerancy which belongs to both life and death, mine and yours, and which offers me a series of shifting reflections as if in water, in which I can see myself, but as the one who is no longer just myself, as the one who is no longer here. The camera is a forgetfulness waiting for memory. Photography has made everything weightless. We're now floating in our own collective mind's likeness. This is a black square representing the nothingness that was prior to the universe, as pictured by the English occult philosopher Robert Fludd, who himself passed into infinity on September 8, 1637. Along the edge of the image, the text reads in translation from the Latin, and so on to infinity. 1915. The painter Malevich's Black Square, called by the New Yorker the most famous, most enigmatic, and most frightening painting known to humanity. an abstraction that mirrors the inside of a camera. It's a sort of film frozen in the gate. It's an overexposure of light. It's a photo of everything at once. It's nothing at all. The illumination that this image offers is its persistent opacity. It transforms me into a bottomless waste, said Malevich. It's a photograph exposed forever. The dark and darkness are the abandonment of light. They function as openings for that which might lie beyond light. We see darkness, and in doing so we sense potentiality, privation, and disappearance. It is the precept by which we are able to think, the formless, the nameless, that which is without figure. It is the ecstasy and terror of the other side of light. It is an absence, a without.
It's the center of your eye, your pupil, the void that unites gazes.
Otherwise, we are blind. The mother as child, as innocence, here enamored by the starched white costume of faith, glorified and unstained, laced in the complexities, symmetries, and flowerings of nature.
What I loved of her, her mischievous axe tricks, her undying, undoubted love.
L'amour est patient, tout plein de bonté, tout plein de bonté. L'amour n'est pas envieux, il n'est jamais orgueilleux. L'amour ne s'endort pas sur la colère, il ne garde aucun souvenir des torts des autres. L'amour a en horreur le mal, mais il se réjouit de la vérité. L'amour fait confiance, il ne s'arrête jamais, il ne s'arrête jamais. L'amour supporte tout, pardonne tout et croit toujours. L'amour est patient, tout plein de bonté, tout plein de bonté. L'amour.
Ernst Jünger, German philosopher, was born in 1895, the same year that cinema, psychoanalysis, and X-rays were born. Around the end of the 1920s, Jünger, decorated warrior, nationalist, and writer, turned to the issue of photography.
If one were to try to describe the type that is emerging today, one could say that its most striking characteristic is the possession of a second consciousness. This second, colder consciousness is indicated by the ever more marked ability to see oneself as an object.
This is due, first of all, to the radical revolutionary fact of photography.
The script of light is a kind of statement within our world and is accorded rightfully the status of a document.
The artificial eye penetrates through cloud banks, atmospheric haze, and the darkness, overcoming the resistance of matter itself. It captures both the flight of the bullet and the individual at the moment before he's blown to shreds by an explosion.
Day in, day out, in addition to the barrels of rifles and guns, optical lenses were pointed at the battleground as instruments of technical awareness.
The camera, a predator, the gaze, steady, focused, and schooled in the observation of things that can be captured in high-velocity conditions. It engenders a specifically modern form of perception, which is further distinguished by its particular intensity as well as the absence of moral safeguards.
To be of the photographic era is to be modern. To be modern is to experience the body as an object to be photographed, to be an image, to be data. The history of human inventions poses the increasingly pressing question whether the final hidden goal of technology may be a space of absolute danger.
What the photograph inaugurates is history itself. And what takes place in this history is the emergence of the image.
And again the Canadians sweep down the ice, and this time it's Joliet, and the Canadians are well ahead. Holland streaking forward desolate shoots to make it first score to the Canadian.
Officially on. A nice gentle game, full of battered shins, cracked skulls, broken arms, tangled legs, and nosedives.
The father, that is, a child, foreshadows in this picture his position in the machine of war.
The camera is literally a black box. It takes an optical record of the impossible shudder of time, a decision to click, an assertion of history of life, of identity. There's a math here of photonics and of optics, of the geometries of a face and the folds of memory, of apertures and of emulsions, of impenetrable darkness, dismissed in a flash, a trigger of time, snapshot, recorded.
Airships, balloons, early airplanes were parallel inventions to the camera. They both opened the world to greater observation. They both developed quickly in the pre-war years of the early past century. Alberto Santos Dumont, Brazilian aeronaut, utopianist, and inventor, designed, built, and flew the first powered airships. He believed the end of war was inevitable because now anyone could see from the air that there were no borders. The open sky would open humanity to the idea of a single world. Photography and balloons. One defies death, the other defies gravity. Both were thought to bring humanity together as one family. Not to be. As soon as flight reached even basic usability, it became a machine for nations, for war, for death. In January 1926, he appealed to the League of Nations to stop the use of airplanes as weapons of war. My God, is there no way to avoid the bloodshed of brothers?" he said. "Why did I make this invention which, instead of contributing to the love between men, turns into a cursed weapon of war? I am horrified by these airplanes." He was so shocked and depressed by the abuse of the technology of flight that he took his own life in despair in 1932.
Pounded the city with almost 4,000 tons of explosives and bombs.
The target is Dresden. Static electrical discharge caused by intense cold mars these magnificent bombing shots.
was making a film on my mother, on photography, which is in its authenticity dependent on chance.
It's a Jungian synchronicity.
Photography was fate before photography was invented.
Photographs are updates on the Judeo-Christian tradition of the akiropita, the true image of Christ, not made by hands. Images untainted by human intervention. Imprints and emanations of divinity. Or so the story goes. This face, this photograph, is the body and face of Christ, exposed by the all-encompassing flash of transfiguration. It was almost as though it had been created for the photographic age. Time, a weight that hangs on a cross, the beams of which are the sun and the moon. The icon, a manifestation of the divine, to translate death's meaning to an assertion of life. To contemplate the face of suffering, the face of humanity, an exercise in empathy. The promise of Christ, the supposed revelation that is the Shroud of Turin, a photograph created by the divine light of revelation of the transfiguration of man into burning, acidic light, as formed by a sort of electromagnetic source of energy. The promise of Christ, life eternal. An image not made by human hands. A photograph of resurrection, a fake from what? Carbon dated to have been made between 1260 and 1390 AD. A medieval con. Tortured body into light, burns the shroud with divine emanation, the flash of a sacred birth that is resurrection, the illumination of pain into the signature of transcendence. Light burns the figure into immortality. Blood is discerned and scientifically confirmed to be actually there. There's a sense that we have captured time and space, but all we have done is to have created the illusion of a frame for the eternal. Sight is a promiscuous sense. The gaze always wants more.
Le bon roi d'Agobert a mis sa culotte à l'envers. Le bon Saint-Éloi lui dit: oh mon roi, votre majesté vous a culotté. C'est vrai, lui dit le roi, je vais la remettre à l'endroit.